Dino Ball.
Do you know ball?
Dino Ball.
Do you know ball?
Dino Ball.
Do you know ball? Episode 27. Welcome back, ladies and gents. I'm Matt. I'm here with my host, Zach. And today we're going to be talking solely on the MLB trade deadline. Now, a lot of moves were made, so we're going to go right into it. We're not going to be talking about every single trade, so keep that in mind. If your favorite team's best trade or worst trade was not mentioned in this video, we apologize. There's a lot of trades that we kind of had to filter, a lot of trades that we had to, think what is good for us to sit down and talk about and give our honest and humble opinion on. So once again, sorry if your favorite team's trade is not on here. If there's a trade that you did want us to talk about and it's not here, comment it down below and we'll address you in the comments about it. But without further ado, Zach, if you're ready, episode 27, Jazz Chisholm is on the cover. I think it's fitting, 27, right? Don't you think? No?
I don't think it's fitting. I just want to get straight into this. A
All
lot
right.
of teams made some great moves in the deadline, some losers, but I overall we'll get into it later, but I'm pretty disappointed with the deadline and we'll shed light on that later on in the pod.
That's
But
right.
go ahead, let's
Yeah.
get into the first topic.
Yeah, no. I'm also a little disappointed, but let's get into the first topic. I'm gonna personally start with my winners of the trade deadline. Okay, the winners of the trade deadline were the Los Angeles Dodgers, and for one, two, three, four, five different reasons, and those reasons are Tommy Edman, Jack Flaherty, Eddie Rosario. That's not true. Ahmed Rosario. I apologize. Eddie Rosario, I see Rosario on the dock, and I just think Eddie Rosario, he's a different team. We'll get into that. So I'm gonna start over. Okay. Tommy Edman, Jack Flaherty, Ahmed Rosario, Kevin Kiermaier, Michael Kopech. That's the five reasons why the Dodgers are this year's trade deadline winners. Now, the Dodgers have been hurt. And I don't know if you saw the lineup the other day, but outside of like Otani and Teoscar, they had Gavin Lux, Jason Hayward, Kike, Biggio, James Outman, Austin Barnes, and Nick Ahmed. Yeah, not great. Not great. Freeman is hurt, Mookie's hurt. So they kind of really needed to slam dunk this trade deadline. And I think they did just that. They had a phenomenal deadline. They fixed a lot of holes in their lineup. I think you see guys like Kevin Kiermaier and Ahmed Rosario. You're not necessarily blown away, but they're good like role players. They're good guys that are going to fill those spots, those holes in the lineup. Whether they platoon or they play every day, defensive or like who cares? The Dodgers always make people good. This is a very good trade deadline. They got one of the best pitchers on the market, Jack Flaherty, Tommy Edman, great utility guy. He hasn't played a game all year, so I'm interested to see, how he's going to fit into that lineup when he is healthy. But regardless of that, my opinion, they just won the trade deadline. Absolute slam dunk. Zach has some opinions. I'll let Zach go. There you
I
go, Zach.
mean,
Your turn. Yeah.
look, the Dodgers got exactly what I think they needed to get. They got a lot of depth moves, which was great. They also Jack Flaherty was the best starting pitcher to get traded for many other reasons that we're going to name later. Um, I think they got exactly what they needed to do. Edman, perfect. I mean, they took a flyer on him. They didn't really give too much up for him. But they to pair him up
Yeah.
with Kopech in the same trade, that's exactly what they needed to do. They got depth for the bullpen, depth for the lineup, a starter, even though once everybody's healthy, they're not really gonna need another starter. They Glasnow has been hurt, Yamamoto's hurt, Kershaw just came back. I know he got rocked tonight. Um, and Bueller is still on the IL. So they needed a starter. He's going to fill in that spot for now. He'll still be a major part to this rotation going forward, but it's a really good thing to have depth like this because now when all those three guys I just named come back, then they have a great rotation. And they already did have a great rotation to begin the year, but now it's just even more lengthy than it was in the beginning of the year. Um, and Michael Kopech, a lot of versatility there. He wasn't really good as a starter for the White Sox, but he's got that kind of versatility. So what they decide to do with him could vary. They could slide him in the bullpen. I think that's what they got him for. But if they really need him to open up a game here and there, maybe start a few while their guys come back from injuries, he could definitely do it. He's done it in the past. And maybe with the Dodgers pitching coaching staff, you know, maybe they could turn a new leaf for him. Maybe he
Mhm.
could be a great starter. So I think they did exactly what they needed to do.
Yeah.
I think they had a monster deadline because let's be real, every deadline for the Dodgers usually is a crazy, crazy experience because they always go out and get exactly what they need every deadline. We saw them do it years prior. One deadline that comes to mind was when they got Trey Turner and
And
Max
Max,
Scherzer
crazy.
for Keibert and Josiah Gray, which were their two top prospects at the time. But, looking back on it, they created a super team that year. They do they do exactly what they need to do at the deadline, and I really truly enjoy these moves they made. They did really good.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'm gonna turn it back over to you. Is there anything else you want to add to this?
Nothing really about the Dodgers. I mean, they're in first place in their division. They will honestly, let's be real, they're gonna probably win the division. These moves, they're hopefully gonna help them in October. I know the Dodgers, a lot of people will label them as chokers, but at the end of the day, they always have the best or one of the best rosters on paper heading into the playoffs. So these moves honestly just strengthen them, and whether they win the World Series or not, they're going to be set for a couple years. Their farm is always, getting reloaded because they always get these top guys and they develop them. So I'm excited to see what happens for them. I don't have to worry about them. Totally different league than the Yankees from a fan perspective, but as a ball knower and a ball lover, expectations because I do know ball. I don't. I feel like a lot of people don't know that I do know ball. Zach, I mean, Zach, do you know ball?
Of course, always know ball. I always know ball. Let's go.
Really?
I always know ball.
Always?
I have the best opinions. I feel like I
Remember?
feel like everybody just watches to see what I say next.
Oh,
That's how
I know
much
I
ball I
do.
know.
I know
That's how
I
much ball
do.
I know.
I love doing this pod with you because I love to hear your opinions on ball.
Yeah. Well, speaking of ball,
Yeah.
let's
Oh,
roll right into
ball to more.
ball some
Oh,
more. Yeah. All right, let's
that was
roll
that was a good
directly
one.
in.
That was a really good one.
I appreciate it. Hats
Thank you.
off.
Thank you. Yeah.
Orioles, they had a interesting deadline to say the least. They did pretty good for themselves. Got some depth starter options, Eflin, Rogers. Um, and they also got some bullpen help. Gregory Soto from the Phillies. Christian Pache is also another depth piece for them. And something I didn't see, I completely missed in the last couple minutes of the deadline, but they got Eloy Jimenez. Now, I don't know exactly how they're going to use Eloy because they got Ryan O'Hearn. O'Hearn has been pretty good all year, all year long for those. And also, they've been kind of platooning him, O'Hearn, and you know, uh
Yeah.
Mountcastle together,
Oh
on
yeah.
and
Oh
off.
yeah. O'Hearn's batting a solid 273 on the year for the people at home that
Yeah,
are wondering. Yeah.
doing really solid. He's
Hmm.
doing really solid this year so far. Um, and Eloy, I don't know exactly how this is gonna fit into their picture, but I guess it just gives them even more depth than they had initially. I mean, they got a lot of options to choose from on who they want to DH a certain day, who they want to play the field a certain day. I think it was a pretty decent trade for them potentially if Eloy could stay healthy. That's always the caveat with Eloy. He tends to go on the IL for long periods of time, uh numerous amount of times throughout the year. So there's always that. And then they got some other guys that don't really matter. The main guys are Tyler Rogers from the Marlins, Trevor Rogers from the Marlins, um, Eloy, Zach Eflin, Sir Anthony Dominguez, and Gregory Soto. I think those are the main guys main pieces that really strengthen this core of the O's and
Mhm.
could honestly give them the depth they need to make a deeper playoff push than they did last season. So yeah, I mean, pretty good deadline for them. Deej, you got any opinions on the O's deadline?
Oh, I got a lot of opinions. First and foremost, I'm a Yankee fan, so they're in my division. And just, seeing these moves, it kills me inside because I think the Orioles honestly had a very good trade deadline. They addressed the needs. They got really good bullpen help. Maybe not really good, but they got great bullpen help, to help with that back end, front end, whatever. It's never, bad thing to have enough arms in your rotation or bullpen. So that's always good. Zach Eflin, I almost fainted when I saw that trade. I love that trade. I love it. You get one of the best pitchers on the market. And personally, I didn't even think he was going to get moved. Like I didn't even think of him as a name to get moved, and they got him. I know the Rays were crazy sellers, and we're going to get into that a little later. But I love that move for the Orioles. I think he's going to fit right into that rotation. Um, and that's really about it. Eloy, I don't really think much of it. Like you said, he's very injury prone. Can he stay healthy? What are they going to do with him? I mean, knowing my luck and all Yankee fans' luck, Eloy's going to turn into prime Giancarlo Stanton with the Orioles and just absolutely shred anyone and anything in sight. But sum it up, I think tremendous job by the Orioles. A team that is fighting for first place in their division, trying to make the playoffs and try to actually make a deep push. They showed urgency and they show that they're here to win and they're here to make moves with their new ownership. So props to Orioles front office and Orioles fans. I hope you guys really enjoyed because you're gonna have a fun run the rest of the season. So enjoy the new players, but I'm gonna go on to the next one unless you want to take on the next one.
Let's go. Let's continue to rattle these off.
All right, let's do it. Next team we're gonna talk about is the Seattle Mariners. I don't really have much to say about the Seattle Mariners, but they did make some interesting trades. Randy Arozarena was traded to the Seattle Mariners. Now, that was something that was not really predictable. I think we knew Randy was gonna get traded, but not to the Mariners. Zach over here was so convinced he was gonna be a Met last week.
I was convinced that he was going to be a Met, but as I stated last week, it was the land of unrealistic moves that they
And
were going to
and
do.
Randy would be your piece to the promised land, as you did say.
I don't remember saying that he was
I
the
think you
piece to the
did.
promised
You
land. I
did
said I said
2015 World Series. Yeah, you
no,
did. Yeah.
2015 deadline vibes. Don't try to put
Okay.
things in my mouth that I didn't
Okay.
say.
No, I'm just
Anyways, anyways, I wasn't expecting Randy to get moved to the Mariners. I mean, I remember I was sleeping. I was literally sleeping, woke up out of nowhere in the late hours of the night, and I looked at my phone, I saw Randy was a Mariner. It came as such a shock to me. It came as such an out of the blue move for me. And to me, this is the really the only thing that the Mariners did that is of note. And you may feel differently about the other two guys they got, but I feel like Randy addressed their outfield problems because Julio hasn't been healthy. He's been on the IL. They really haven't had a great outfield putting out day in and day out. Um, so I think Randy addressed certain problems that they had in the outfield, but also getting one bat like that doesn't really solve all the issues. As we talked about last week, they're on a fall from grace. The Astros have been playing outstanding baseball.
yeah.
They've been playing really, really well. So they've just been falling down out of grace. They did some moves to address what they had, the problems they have, but I don't think it was enough. Definitely wasn't enough. Um, and Randy hasn't had the best year. He hasn't had the best year this year. He's just starting to get back to his old ways and start to get back into the Randy that he was. He's been hot the past couple weeks, but it's been difficult for him to be the player we know he is. So
hmm
that's just my thoughts on the Mariners. I think Randy was the only move that was notable for them and that made a difference for them. I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, for a team that was kind of spiraling out of control that I deemed as just forgetting like how to play baseball, I think the Randy move is fun, but does that fix your problems? No, it doesn't. I don't watch Mariners games. I don't really know enough about the Mariners to know why they're spiraling. As just a fan on the outside looking in, all I can really look at is the standings and whatever I see on my Twitter feed. And I try to learn, but I don't know. So I can't speak too much about what the problems are in Seattle. But Randy, I know, is just not going to solve all those problems. And it'd be different maybe if Randy was having a solid year, but he's not. He's not having a great year to our standards that we hold of Randy too. Like we've known what he's done in the past in the playoffs, especially 2020 for the Rays. Absolutely phenomenal. Probably one of the best players I've ever seen. 2020 Randy Rosarena, like who gets better than that? No one. Maybe Aaron Judge. That's the only player I could think of. But nah, just it's Justin Turner, and then Yimi Garcia, just those little moves mixed in there, solid, but maybe could have been better for a team trying to fight for divisional status in the upcoming playoffs in October. So that's all I got to say about the Mariners. Once again, Mariners fans, let us know how you feel. I know I've seen a lot of Mariners fans like really contemplate life on social media. So let me know how you feel if you're here watching. Um, without further ado, I will go into the next topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, I think you're
next
doing it. Okay.
next deadline person we're going to be talking about is the San Diego Padres. DJ AJ Preller cooked. AJ Preller cooked.
Preller.
I personally think that he did a great job at the deadline. He got a decent arm in Martin Perez from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Pirates weren't sellers by any means. I mean, they're still in the wild card hunt in the NL, but they they got him, they added him to the rotation. They got the biggest and I think personally the best bullpen arm in Tanner Scott on the market this trade deadline. I think Tanner Scott has been terrific for the Marlins. He needed desperately to get out of there. The Marlins desperately needed to sell him, and why not go to a place that has the chance, a real chance to make a playoff push and go farther than they did previous years. So and they also got Adam.
Yeah.
And while that might be a tiny move,
Underrated. Yeah.
underrated move, I think it does the job. I think it adds depth. You you got a bullpen, right? Robert Suarez is having a year
Yes.
for them.
Very
He's
good
been
year.
fantastic. And you're pairing that up, that right-handed powerhouse with a left-handed powerhouse, and then you're having added depth with Jason Adam, along with the other guys that they already have in the bullpen. I think they did exactly what they needed to do. Um, like I said, I don't really think they needed bats. Bats really wasn't the problem for them. Their offense really wasn't the problem. I think pitching in general was the problem. They addressed what they needed to address, and they made their bullpen a hell of a lot stronger. So that's really a good job on the Padres' part, and I really think that they did fantastic.
Mhm. Yeah. I think they had a solid trade deadline. As we know, AJ Preller is probably the most aggressive GM in the entire league. Padres are very lucky in the sense that their prospect pool and their farm just kind of gets replenished year after year. They're very good at developing. Like for example, as we've seen, and very good at scouting, like James Wood and Mackenzie Gore, CJ Abrams are all like, they're going to be studs for the Nationals. We already saw CJ Abrams already an all-star this year. All for Juan Soto. But they traded a lot of top prospects. I believe I apologize. I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't have it written down, but it was like three of their top five prospects were traded for Tanner Scott, if I'm not mistaken. Like that's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, yeah, sure, Tanner Scott's probably the best, well, not probably, definitely the best reliever on the market, but he's a rental. He's going to be a free agent after this year, and you're doing all that. for Tanner Scott. Hopefully, you make a push. And they're not even in the race at the moment. I think they're just out of it. You would know. You're an NL fan, Zach. Are they?
They're bouncing back and forth right now for
Okay.
the
Yeah.
third wild card
So
spot.
so the basically the same as everyone in the NL is kind of
Hmm.
bouncing back and forth. Okay, so they're in the race, them and like a couple other teams.
Hmm.
So it's very, it's cool to see that like a GM is all in and not really afraid of parting ways with prospects. Jason Adam, very underrated pickup for them. I think he's going to be good. Martin Perez, I don't really care about. Tanner Scott, he's going to be great for them. He's so good. And for anyone that like just sits here and says that like he's good, please sit down and like watch him if you get the chance because he's just so much better than just good. Like he's phenomenal. Like his stuff, his strikeouts, like his pitches. Look at his baseball savant page. Look at like his fantasy page. Anything like that. Just look at his advanced stats. Like he's just phenomenal. And it's a great pickup for the Padres. Um that's really all I got. AJ Preller just a very aggressive GM. And at least Padres fans, like you might have lost Soto, looking good in pinstripes, by the way. I must add he's looking phenomenal in pinstripes, maybe for the next century, hopefully. But you always know you're gonna have a fun trade deadline when your GM is AJ Preller. And a fun offseason. I'm gonna go to the Phillies.
Go ahead, go right ahead. I actually want to get into the Phillies.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's go. Let's
You
do it.
ready? Ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
How ready are you on a scale of 1 to 10 though?
I'm at a 10. I'm so
Really?
ready. I'm so ready.
I'm at an 11.
Okay, let's get it started then.
All right, ladies and gents, Zach wants to get it started. So we're gonna get it started. All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
All
Let's
right,
get it on.
Phillies. The Philadelphia Phillies, they traded for Carlos Estevez and Austin Hayes. I think they had a pretty, it's only like these are like the two notables, but I like it. I think the Austin Hayes move, a lot of people just saw and just kind of like wrote it off or whatever. The Orioles got their bullpen depth with Sir Anthony Dominguez, and the Phillies got Austin Hayes. But I really like the Austin Hayes. He fits right into that lineup, whether he's platooning or whatever. He was an all-star like last year, I think, and he was not really his usage rate was not all there. So he's a little happier to being in Philly, and his like first comments to the press, kind of reflected that he's very happy to be in Philly and finally happy to kind of be getting more playing time. Carlos Estevez, I think you can argue is probably the second best reliever on the market behind Tanner Scott. Whether you want to flip flop the two, that's totally up for debate. But that's just my opinion. Carlos Estevez has been absolutely phenomenal, lights out. People like to say that the Phillies have the best bullpen in the entire league, and I wouldn't argue with that. And it just got better. Carlos Estevez is going to be electric for them, especially in October. Same thing with Austin Hayes. He immediately felt the love right in Philly. He loves being a part of the crowd, and the teammates are just so welcoming. It's called the city of brotherly love for a reason, folks. Let's not forget that. It's Philadelphia. Great cheesesteaks, by the way. Great cheesesteaks. If you have the chance to stop at Geno's, I highly recommend it. Great cheesesteaks, but even greater players. Austin Hayes, Carlos Estevez. I don't got much else to say, but Zach is like tweaking, like he's shaking. He's dying to talk about the Phillies.
Dude, the Phillies, I mean, man, Austin Hayes at the deadline, they're gonna turn him into something special. And while that's not Austin Hayes is not the Luis Robert
That
type
yeah,
guy that
yeah,
they
yeah,
were
yeah.
rumored to get, I think they have a fair chance of turning Austin Hayes into the great player that we once knew he was. Um, he didn't really fit into the Orioles regime. Um, he wasn't really being used, and I think his stats in his 2024 season really suffered because of that. Um, so Austin Hayes is a great move for them in the outfield. They downright said that they're going to play him a lot, if not every day, in the Phillies lineup, which again, I mean, we were there. We watched them in person. The Phillies
Hmm.
lineup is absolutely disgusting from top to bottom. To
Yeah.
add another bat like Austin Hayes and to hopefully reform Austin Hayes into his all-star form would be fantastic and just give them a little bit more of an edge going to the postseason. Um, Carlos Estevez, to me, great move, but it feels a little bit like overkill. It feels a little bit like overkill. Now you may look at me, Deej. and you may be like, that doesn't really make any sense. Here's why I'll say it's a little bit of overkill. Look, I mean, Carlos Estevez is the second best reliever on the market, on the trade deadline market this year. But I already thought Phillies had a great bullpen. And so to just add Carlos Estevez, I feel like makes them
So,
even more overpowered than they already were.
but you're
So
not saying that as like a bad thing, though, right?
no.
Okay,
It's not no.
the word overkill might not have been the best choice. I thought you were about to like rake on them for
No,
just getting
this is
more
a
talent. Okay,
a great move. But
you said
I feel like
overkill, and I think of that as a negative word, and I was like,
no.
well, what is
I
this kid
feel
talking
like
about?
truthfully, I feel like they had a great bullpen
Like
to
Trem
begin with.
Hoffman, Strom, tremendous bullpen.
Did you expect Hoffman to be a
No,
freaking all-star
I
this year?
I truthfully had no idea who Jeff Hoffman was until I saw the All-Star roster.
I don't think any of
I
us did.
I had no idea who he was. I thought it
I
was a
don't think any
joke.
of us did.
Yeah.
So to add him to an already great bullpen, I feel like I said, is just overkill. They have a fantastic bullpen. They already had a fantastic bullpen. Carlos Estevez was the second best reliever on the market. You added him to an already stacked bullpen. You added Austin Hayes to an already stacked lineup, and the pitching staff, the starting pitching staff at least, you didn't need to do anything to that. We knew that. Um, but Phillies fans, I would be happy with these moves. Um, because they're great. They add exactly not exactly what they need technically, because they technically didn't need Estevez. They just got Estevez because they saw it. They go, "Oh, that's shiny. I want it," and just took it for themselves. So the only thing they wanted was an outfield bat. They got it in Austin Hayes. They could have got Luis Robert, but some things don't always go
Yeah.
the way they should have gone. And
The
that's going to be a later topic because we are going to discuss the White Sox and how they did or was supposed to do in the 2024 deadline.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's all I really got for the Phillies. Great deadline for them.
Mhm. Now this is gonna be an interesting one. Now, normally, teams are trying to add at the trade deadline. We don't ever really talk about the sellers that much, but I'm gonna do what I can. Once again, an AL East rival. The Tampa Bay Rays were honestly out of the sellers, probably the biggest winner out of them all. Now, they traded Eflin, Paredes, Randy Rosarena. They traded a lot of guys, and some of the major league players that they got in return. Christopher Morel, Dylan Carlson. They got a bunch of prospects. Dylan Lesko, Homer Bush Jr., JD Gonzalez, Aiden Smith, Brody Hopkins, Matt Horvath, Jackson Baumeister, and Matthew Etzel. Those are the prospects they got in return. Now, if there's anyone that can turn studs, um, like turn prospects into studs, it's the freaking Tampa Bay Rays. To be fair though, these guys are probably not even going to be raised in 5 years, right? Because when they got to get paid, the Rays are just going to trade, and it's the whole cycle. So, Rays fans, I'm genuinely curious. How do you feel? I think Christopher Morel is going to be a beast. I really do think. I think he's going to be an absolute beast. I think Chicago, they've been trying to like use him as a trade chip for so long now, and they finally kind of got their guy with Christopher Morel. They got Isaac Paredes, and we'll touch on that. Actually, the next topic, we'll talk about the Cubs. But, in terms of a really good deadline, the Rays are kind of on the opposite end of it in terms of just selling all their players. But, they can't afford them. It's the Rays. They're cheap. We know this. But it was a really solid deadline. And if I'm like a Rays fan, I expected it, but I'm kind of excited for the future. And as a Yankee fan, I want to die because they're just going to keep pumping out, talent every single year. And I expect it. But I feel like we've been saying everyone has been having a really good deadline. Trust us, guys. We're just getting started, okay? We still got like at least maybe 4 or 5 more teams we're going to talk about. And then we're going to talk about the White Sox, and they're always fun to talk about. So, Pat, go ahead. If you don't have anything to say, we'll go to the next topic.
Look, the only thing I want to just touch on is
Sure.
this is
Sure.
with the Rays, they did are, in my eyes, are the biggest winners in terms of selling
Yeah.
teams
Oh,
wise.
yeah.
100%. They got a ton of prospects back. I already mentioned this last week. We knew this was going to happen. The Rays were out of the race. They're not going to be a postseason team this year. We all knew this. We all knew this was coming. I agree with you 100% with Christopher Morel. I feel like in Chicago, he obviously 100% wasn't the main guy. Wasn't the main guy, not even in the slightest. Um, I don't know if he was playing every day. I don't think he was. And now he'll get the chance to do that with the Rays. And actually, he will be one of the faces, if not the face, could be potentially the face of the team. Randy's gone. All the other guys are gone. You got Yandy Diaz still there, but it's every he has a chance to be that guy for the Rays now. He has a chance to take a hold of a new team. So I think he'll come out of his shell. Dylan Carlson's another guy that is could really, really blossom with this team. It's an underrated move, Dylan Carlson. But they got so many prospects, and like you said, they just find a way to make that diamond in a rough, to find that diamond in a rough, especially when it comes to prospects. And you know that their front office did a great job in scouting and picking out exactly what they wanted for the guys that they traded. You know that happened. So I think they did a great job and setting themselves up for the future and allowing Christopher Morel and Dylan Carlson to bloom into potentially big stars in the league. Um, Maybe we will eat those. I'll eat those words in the future, but for now, they could be potentially big stars in the league a few years down the line.
Mhm.
But with that being said, let's spill over into our first negative review of a trade deadline. We got the Chicago Cubs. And let me tell you something. Before, when I saw the Isaac Paredes trade with the Rays, I looked at that and I went, holy shit. I mean, what is happening? My mind was blown, completely blown. I thought 100% this team was going to be a seller. They are selling everybody and anybody to whoever wanted it. Whoever wanted it. They didn't do that. They did honestly quite the opposite of that. Um, Paredes was the only move they made. Only move they made. Um, and they could have done so much better. It just shocked me because this is a team at the deadline, the day of the deadline, that was 6 games under 500, and not only 6 games under 500, they were 6 games out of the NL wildcard race. They're not going to the playoffs. The season's over. Chalk it up. Sell the people that you need to sell in order to set yourself up better for the future. That's the goal. That's the whole point of being a seller. And also, didn't their GM or someone from their front office say a few days, maybe a week before the trade deadline that they're going to be a seller?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
they're
they
going
did.
to be selling
I'll touch on that.
everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, now.
Yeah,
Oh,
go
sure.
ahead.
Yeah.
Touch base on
Yeah.
it. Go ahead.
Okay.
Touch base on it.
Chicago. Oh, how y'all doing? So yeah, so someone in the Cubs front office, I think maybe the GM, basically was like, yeah, any moves that we make this trade deadline, unless we have some crazy winning streak, which spoiler alert, did not happen. Any trade we make is going to be for the future, for 2025, 2026, to set us up for a better tomorrow. Again, that was a lie. Yeah, they just lied to us. So they got Isaac Paredes. We already touched on the Rays return for it. Brady's is phenomenal. He's going to man the fort down at third base for them for years. I like that they got him. But as Zach said, even at the moment, they're 6 games under 500. They're not in a wild card race. They're not going to be making the playoffs. And on top of that, they're in last place in their division. Yeah, they're the last place in the NL Central at the moment. So they had the opportunity to potentially and sell. on Nico Horner, right? His name was brought up a little bit. Jamison Tyone, they could have sold him. He was having a solid year. Cody Bellinger was, kind of an out there name, but a guy that they maybe could have sold, right? These are names that, as the president, was saying, yeah, we're going to sell. You didn't capitalize on that, right? You traded Mark Leiter Jr. to the Yankees. Congrats, that's your selling. That's your selling. Um, but it was just very interesting from a Cubs perspective, and I'm really interested in like the fan perspective. Like obviously, you don't ever want to see your team have to just sell all your good players, but you got Isaac Paredes. Do they truly believe that Paredes could push them into a position? I mean, that's a lot of faith to have. And there's been a lot of concerns with Paredes that, he can't hit outside of there's this whole narrative with Paredes that he can't hit outside of Tropicana because his swing is developed for the really short wall in left field in Tropicana. He pulls everything. Look at his spray chart. He legitimately pulls every single ball. Every home run is always pulled. So I'm interested to see how Paredes will fit with the Ivy, with the Wrigley outfield and everything like that, because it's not as short as Tampa. Um, but it's just interesting. And Jeff Passan also mentioned that even though the Cubs said they might be selling, that doesn't mean that they necessarily like every move has to be it. It's also about seeing when you can get good value for players. And even though this might have not been in a selling nature, going out and trading prospects for Isaac Paredes, the Cubs front office clearly saw, okay, you know what? We can get Paredes for good value. He's young. We can lock him down for the next 2, 3, 4 years at third base. He's going to help us in the future. And I think that's what they saw. So I don't hate the Paredes move, but I am a little confused as to why the Cubs did not sell more. And Cubs fans, that's where you guys come in. If you made it this far, if you're watching, please let us know what you thought, and if there's any information that we are missing regarding the Cubs' decision making or their thought process, please comment down below. Let us know. We'll have a conversation. But that's all I got about Chicago. We can go to the next NL Central team.
The St. Louis Cardinals. Now, I don't hate what they did. I think they did pretty good, especially in that three-team trade with the Dodgers and the White Sox. They did pretty good for themselves. They got Eric Fedde. Eric Fedde's been terrific for the White Sox and needed a change because the White Sox are quite possibly and without a doubt the worst team in baseball. The worst team in baseball. They're like 28 and 83 or something along those lines. They're terrible. They needed to get rid of him and give him a chance at a playoff berth, a playoff atmosphere, and that's exactly what they did. They offered him up, and not just him, they gave up Tommy Pham to the Cardinals. Um, Tommy Pham, again, we all have seen this story before. Tommy Pham has been a great guy to have off the bench, maybe not an everyday starter. He has his ups and his downs. But overall, I think Tommy Pham is a pretty good hitter, especially to have as a depth piece for the Cardinals. Um, but I just personally, I think the deadline was mid for them. I think they could have done a little more than they did. Um, like I said, Eric Fedde is a great option to have, but um, I feel like they could have just done a little bit more to make themselves just a little bit better at the deadline to give them a higher chance of making the postseason. Because, like I said, that NL wildcard race is really close. It's been close for a long time.
Mhm.
And it probably will go down to the wire till the end of the year. So, Deej, you got it. You wanna talk about the Cardinals deadline?
Yeah, for a team that's kind of not really kind of for a team that is in the wild card hunt, I think they could have done maybe a little bit more. I don't hate the moves. I think Eric Fedde and I think Tommy Pham is going to be solid for them. Um, but I feel like they're just such cardinal acquisitions. Like if I did not know that these guys got traded and you asked me to pick the two guys, like what team they got traded to, I feel like I could blind guess the Cardinals. It just feels right. Um, they got a really good they got really good value on the Eric Fetty trade. Considering what the other pitchers were being traded for, it was just great value from the Cardinals part, and the White Sox not the best return on that in that aspect. Tommy Pham, as Zach said, maybe not an everyday guy, but he is a guy that he'll fight. He'll fight. If you try and mess with him in fantasy football, Jock Peterson, he'll mess you up. But not really much to say on the Cardinals. I wish there was more. I wish I could be more excited about it. Um, but I know I follow some Cardinals fans, and a lot of them were pretty happy with, or I should say happy. I mean, they were like pretty solid with the trade deadline. I think more could have been done though to really cement themselves over the edge as true contenders. But if they make the playoffs, hey, maybe they make noise. But I'm gonna,
Maybe,
yeah,
maybe they make noise. I'm taking this one from you. I'm sorry.
I want to
I
take no, I want to say this one. Please let me say this
Go ahead. All right.
one.
All
Okay.
right. I'll give up the reins. I'll give up the reins. Let's go. Come on. Because I got a lot to say about this.
The Atlanta Braves. They got Jorge Soler. Your turn.
Yep,
See,
that's it.
I made it quick. I made it quick for
Okay.
you.
Okay.
The
I
the
appreciate
pride
it.
and joy of Atlanta from 2021 is back on the team. That's all I want to say. How fun is that, Atlanta fans? How do you feel?
Super fun. Super fun. You know what? I applaud you.
He's a great player.
You guys have had a tough year.
Giants, what are we
Let's be
doing?
real.
What are
Let's
we
be
doing?
real. Giants are irrelevant. They've been irrelevant the whole year.
Oh,
They were not making the postseason. They never were making the
but
postseason.
they were looking to trade Blake Snell, though. That's
Mhm.
interesting, right?
Yep, but they didn't. But they didn't.
They were in
They
like this
didn't.
weird, like, what are we doing phase? Like, we traded Soler, which I saw was kind of out of nowhere. But then they were
Mhm.
also trying to ship off Blake Snell because now apparently they're not willing to pay his, next years of the contract.
Because Blake Snell didn't pan out the way they thought he was going to pan out.
Well, that's what
That's why.
happens. Scott Boris, that's what happens when you don't sign your guys before spring training. Jordan Montgomery sucks now, by the way. Good job,
Yep.
Scott Boris.
Scott
Good
Boras
job.
really screwed the pooch on that one. On both of those guys, they have been not good, not good, not very good at all. But yeah, they sold Soler to the Braves, and they were in that phase where it's like exactly what you said. What do we do? Are we classified as sellers now because we sold Soler? Like, is that the first move that we're gonna make to get depth back for the future? Is it? Kind of maybe no. I don't know. They were in a rough phase, but this is not the whole point of this segment. I really want to talk about the Braves. The Braves, a much needed outfield bat. I believe he's going to be
He
actually
is
playing the outfield for
because
them.
they have Ozuna from the Braves. They have to play him.
Yep, but
Yeah.
Ozuna's got to play DH, and you know
Ozuna.
what? You know what? I applaud the Braves. I give the Braves a little golf clap because they've had such a rough 2024 season. Acuna, Albies hurt, Strider hurt,
I feel like
Michael
you're
Harris is
mocking
on
them.
there.
Why are you mocking them?
How am I mocking them?
I just feel like the way you're coming off, you're just trying to make fun of them.
How am I mocking them?
You
I'm literally just stating the obvious, which is what they've lost throughout this season.
continue.
Acuna on the IL, done for the year. Ozzy
That's not great.
Albies,
Yeah.
Ozzy Albies, Spencer Strider, Michael Harris, you know, all these guys that were supposed to be a part of this stacked Braves team, all on the IL. That's that's got to be rough. Braves fans,
You're 100% making fun of them.
I'm not making fun
Your
of them.
your tone of voice, your face, you're smiling, you're laughing.
I can't. Okay, okay. If
I
you're
would
pointing
never.
out cats,
I,
dude, 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 I could smirk, I could smile all I want, but Braves fans, what are we thinking? What are we feeling?
I don't
How are
know.
we feeling about Soler coming back? Is he the
Laughing at injuries is crazy. That's crazy. I would never do that.
is he the missing piece to this team that could help them a little more than you know than he should maybe? I don't know. Braves fans, you let me know. You let me know how you feel about this move. I know 2024 has been rough for you. I feel for you. Not really. I don't really care.
You're such
Um,
an ass.
I could care less. Hey, I'm a Mets fan,
You saw me praising the
dude.
Rays and the Orioles, and you can't say one nice thing about
Okay,
the Braves.
Rays and Orioles. Okay, Orioles. I could see you guys clashing heads more right now this year. In terms of this year, you and the Orioles don't go together, don't mix well. Rays are so far back there. You don't even care what they do or
So
how they
you're
do
just
this
so
year.
the Braves just live rent free in your head is what I'm hearing.
Braves don't live rent free in my head. I'm just saying the obvious. They had a rough year. They got Soler back. Congrats.
See, the Mets being good for baseball, like it's just not good for baseball. The Mets being good is not good for baseball.
I'm just congratulating them on getting
Good.
Soler back. What's the big deal?
You're laughing at their
Um,
injuries.
I'm not laughing.
Yes, you are. You can't say that with a straight face.
Look, they've had a rough year. I feel for them. I truly feel for them. I think that, it's been rough. It's been rough for them. But they got Soler.
You
They did good. They did good. That's the outfielder they wanted.
talking down on them like they're the little
I'm
brothers is
I'm I'm
crazy.
really not. I'm really not because you know what? We're in a tight race right now.
Okay,
We're in a tight race.
I'm gonna go to the next team.
Go ahead.
The Milwaukee Brewers. Frankie Montas.
That's about it. I think we
Yeah.
should go on to the next thing.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go in much, Brewers, you guys are in good hands. Like you could have 10 first graders on your lineup every day and you'll be fine. Like you guys are just good. All right, y'all are chilling.
Y'all are chilling. This is your segment, buddy. This
Ooh.
next one's you. This one's all you. Let it out. Let your feelings out. Let the world know how you feel about this Yankees
See,
deadline.
okay, I thought you were talking about the White Sox, but yeah, let's talk about the Yankees. Let's talk about the Yankees.
Let's talk about the Yankees. Go ahead.
All
This is
right.
you.
So if y'all didn't know, I'm a Yankee fan, big Yankee fan, die hard, love the Yankees. 27 rings, let's go. Um, Ryan Cashman screwed the pooch heavily on this one. Like, you have Juan Soto for 1 year guaranteed, right? You already had this massive skid, right? You saw all the problems with the team, with the organization, and you sat back and you signed Brett Phillips. Brett Phillips.
As a pitcher,
I don't care.
nonetheless,
I don't care.
nonetheless,
I
as a
don't
pitcher.
care.
Sorry, no, I'm just helping.
Shut up. Let me talk.
Okay,
Because
go on.
I'll go right hard, right back at you. And the Mets. All right. This trade deadline for the Yankees was not the worst thing in the world because they got the best hitter traded at the entire trade deadline. They got Jazz Chisholm. For those that are unaware with Jazz Chisholm, his game, his aura, right? This man hit 4 home runs in his first 3 games as a Yankee. 4 home runs. 4 home runs. And they're not just pooper home runs. Do I need to mention they were off the Phillies? Now, granted, one of them was off a position player, but it's a home run and it fits my agenda. So I'm gonna push it. I'm gonna push it, baby. All right. Other than that, the trade deadline was not great for the Yankees. You are essentially banking on Jazz Chisholm to be your everyday third baseman, a position he's never played professionally until he reached the Yankees. You are relying on Gleyber Torres, who, by the way, leads all of second basemen with the most errors. You're relying on him to get back to form and play second base every day. You are relying on Clay Holmes to be your everyday closer instead of going out and getting one, such as Tanner Scott or Fairbanks, right? Clay Holmes, by the way, has the most blown saves in the entire MLB. I just think I should put that out there. You are relying so much on these veterans. You're relying so much on DJ LeMahieu. You're relying so much on Clark Schmidt to come back to form, on Jason Dominguez, the 20-something-year-old like rookie who played less than 10 games before getting ACL injury or whatever it was. You're putting so much pressure on these guys to come back and perform because Brian Cashman had his press conference today, and I'm so upset that I was not able to watch it and I didn't get to see as many quotes as I would have liked to. So after this pod, I'm going to go and I'm going to try and find it and watch as much as I can. Brian Cashman He basically was saying what every Yankee fan thought he was going to say, that these injuries are going to be like acquisitions with Clark coming back and Dominguez coming back. And even you mentioned Rizzo, Anthony Rizzo coming back. Anthony Rizzo in 2024, like that's just a joke. Like you just have to move on. You don't owe him anything. You don't. You don't owe DJ LeMahieu anything. Okay. If they're not good at baseball, if they're not performing, you have to sit them. And I think it's a total malpractice from the front office that you didn't go out, you didn't address the bullpen as much as you should have. You didn't address third base at all. You're relying on Jazz Chisholm to be your everyday third baseman. As much as they do want to say that he's a super utility and they're going to play him everywhere, it's just such a big failure because you have the Orioles trading top prospects to improve their team tremendously. You have the Dodgers always gutting their farm, the Padres always gutting their farm. And for some reason, you can't trade a prospect who's position blocked. If Anthony Volpe is truly your shortstop of the future, you have three of the top 10 prospects for the Yankees, I believe, are shortstops. You have three shortstops whose positions are getting blocked by Anthony Volpe. Why can't you move one? Why can't you move one? I didn't even address first base. We don't have a true first baseman. Ben Rice, he was really good and he's cooled off so much. Are you putting that much reliance on Ben Rice going into the postseason? Like he cannot. He's been solid as of late. Austin Wells has been absolutely phenomenal behind the plate. You have that there. Judge and Soto have been absolutely phenomenal. Verdugo's been heating up, but do we trust Verdugo to really, bounce back? Are we going to put so much faith into Stanton to really be the difference maker for this team? It's just such a failure for 1 year of Juan Soto to not go all in, to not go out and trade those prospects because prospects are the biggest gamble in sports. And you hope that those prospects are going to turn out to be good major league players, right? Like you hope that, for example, Yankees prospect George Lombard Jr., you hope that he's going to be the next Derek Jeter, but you never know. You hope. There's no guarantee that he's going to be good. And if you can trade him for an already good, established MLB player that'll help you win now, who gives a crap if you're trading them? Who cares? If you're trading them for someone that's already established, that's my problem. I can't complain too much because, yes, Jazz has been absolutely phenomenal, but he's not the savior that this Yankees team needed. He's just not. I viewed him as a second baseman that was going to replace Gleyber Torres. And what did they do? They put Jazz at third base. They're relying too much on Gleyber. They're going to be playing DJ LeMahieu almost every other day against lefties. Ben Rice slash Anthony Rizzo is going to be at first base, and I can even insert DJ LeMahieu at first base too. It's just such a malpractice from Brian Cashman, and I cannot say that much on camera without probably getting canceled by the whole Yankee community. It's just so frustrating, and I really hope for Brian Cashman's sake that Jazz Chisholm is the next Barry Bonds. I didn't even get into to Jack Flaherty. This man backed out of the Jack Flaherty trade. Backed out. Backed out like what? Because the medicals, because the value for prospects didn't match up. There were two different answers. Yesterday, the actual trade deadline is because of medicals. Today, it had nothing to do with medicals. It was because the value didn't match up. So which one is it, Brian Cashman? I would like to know. I would like to know. Nestor Cortez, you're putting so much faith on him to be your third or fourth starter every single day and potentially pitch in the postseason. You're putting so much faith in him. There's just so much. The bullpen, you got Mark Leiter, you got Eniel Dos Santos with a 4.46 ERA. Mark Leiter not even greater than that. So it's just so frustrating. And I truly I've been going on for so long, but like once I get going, I just can't stop. It's just such a malpractice. It really pisses me off that like this is what we did in an all-in year. We did not acquire a third baseman. We did not acquire an extra bat. We didn't. Brian Cashman essentially sat there and said, "You know what? This team plus Jazz Chisholm is the best that we can do." That's what he said. And the fact that the fans see this and not the actual GM really pisses me off. So I think before I continue to rattle on for the next half hour, I think I have to relinquish the set here, and I have to let Zach talk about the Mets. But if any of you Yankee fans, whether you're here on YouTube or you're watching this on TikTok, you want to go ahead and have a conversation about the deadline with me, please feel free to comment down below or send private message in DM or whatever. And I'll be more than glad to rant to you specifically about whatever you want. So, Zach, I have to relinquish my talking abilities because I won't stop. I won't stop. There's
I
so
don't
much more
blame
I
you.
could say. So much more I could say, but I have to go off the top of my head and I have to kind of squeeze it down to like a good 5 minute thing. And that was probably more than 5 minutes. So go for it.
Yep. What I'm about to say may shock you. It may shock you. You know, the New York Mets trade deadline. Let's get into that. Let's talk a little bit about that. As I've had some time to digest and really soak in what happened and the guys they got and the year and what it was about, I can't honestly be mad that David Stearns didn't be like, you know what? Let's just throw everything in and try to get every big piece that we possibly can this year. Because at the end of the day, I remember exactly what I said at the beginning of the year. We are not supposed to make the postseason. If we
Mhm.
make the postseason, it is a miracle. It's a gift from God. This team, this current Mets team, was never supposed to make the postseason. So if we do, yay, that's great. I would be so excited. But that being considered, I like the moves that were made because they were minor and, they didn't take much and they added a little bit back to the team. I'm going to go from person to person. Um, Bullpen wise, we got Oscar Brazoban. He's had a pretty I wasn't aware of his game, but he's had a pretty decent year with Miami. 2.93, 2.83 ERA. That's not bad. In 31 innings pitched, around like a good amount of strikeouts, like 66. That's not bad. That's not terrible. Paul Blackburn, he's going to be a part of what is now maybe a six-man rotation. I believe that's what the Mets are trying to run at the moment. Jesse Winker is without a doubt the highlight of their deadline. It was a good bat, a mid bat that they got from the Nationals. And it really adds to this lineup, especially with Starling Marte being hurt. Um, the next guy up, Tyler Zuber, nobody really cares. I mean, he got him for nothing. Got him for nothing. He's got like a 70 ERA on the year. It is what it is. Ryan Stanek and Phil Maton, I'm gonna pair these two together. They're they're okay. They're all right. They're nothing special. They're not, the cream of the crop when it comes to getting relievers in the deadline, but they're all right. They're okay. And I feel like after soaking in and looking at exactly what they got, they did all right. They did good for this year. This year's not our year. I could fully admit that. If we go further than we're expected, I will jump for joy. You will see me rooting for them through thick and thin, through the worst of it to the best of it. I was there when they were 11 games under 500. I'm still here when they're 6 games over 500 and in a playoff spot. I'm here. I've been here. I will always be here. But this year is not their year, point blank. So I'm happy that David Stearns didn't go out and give up a ton of prospects and throw a ton of our future out, even though, you know, I don't really know how to exactly put it together. I like our farm system. I don't I just point is I don't want to drone on about it, but I like what they did. I like that we got to keep our prospects and didn't just throw it all away. So now with the dust settled, I think this was okay for the Mets. I think this is this was okay. That's how I'm feeling. So we could go on and we could move on to the next topic. Simple as that. Um, our last topic of the day is going to be a fun one. So we planned on doing an overall opinion on the deadline. And as both me and Matt stated, we didn't really, it hasn't been a great deadline. In terms of notable players and actual high pieces of value being traded. It hasn't been too great. And I think one of the biggest failed opportunities of this deadline roots to the Chicago White Sox. You know, they have, they still have the pieces that should have been traded. Garrett Crochet should have been traded somewhere, anywhere but the White Sox. Do you know how much value they could have gotten, Matt? Do you understand how much value they could have gotten for
How
Garrett
much?
Crochet?
How much?
Loads,
Loads.
prospects, a future. His team has no future. His team will and continue to be one of the worst teams in baseball, if not the worst team in baseball for the future to come. Luis Robert, my God. I mean, that's another guy that's just rotting away on the White Sox, wasting any potential he could have. He's just rotting there. They got no future. They got no future. And they had a chance to capitalize this at the deadline, and they just chose to ignore it. They chose to throw it away. And Deej, I'm just curious on your opinions. What's your thoughts about the White Sox deadline?
Yeah, it 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 was a total waste. I mean, like I shouldn't say total waste, but like why hold on to these guys? Like there was a point that I saw that Tariq Skubal was more likely to get traded than Garrett Crochet. And we didn't even talk about the Tigers or touch on Tariq Skubal, but there's not really much else to say. Um the fact that Tariq Skubal was more likely to get traded than Garrett Crochet, Tariq Skubal should not get traded whatsoever. Like at all. Like and the fact
Absolutely not.
yeah, and the fact that he was more likely to get traded with Garrett Crochet is just absolutely mind-boggling. So I don't know what the White Sox are doing, and I don't really know how the fans feel because do they even have fans? Like we have to address that first.
The one
Um,
person in the background
the
over
one
there, that's their
person.
fan.
Thanks,
That's their
Jimmy.
fan.
Thanks, Jimmy. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. But it's like you had the opportunity to get a boatload for a young starter, Garrett Crochet, but he also kind of screwed the pooch with that with the whole contract extension thing. I don't, did you know about that?
I did not.
So it was like I might be butchering this, but there was something that like he was like demanding a contract extension from whatever team
Mhm.
like traded it was something along those
Yeah,
lines.
yeah, you know what? I
So
did hear about that.
it
That whoever he
yeah.
got traded to, he was demanding that
Yeah.
they indeed give him a
It,
contract extension as soon as he got there.
it
That
was
was the
something,
term.
yeah, it was something along those lines. I think it had something to do with like his pitch limit because he's never like pitched a full season as a starter. Like I said, I don't know the full details, but it was something along those lines. So Crochet in his camp maybe kind of screwed the pooch a little bit with that. Maybe that's why he was not likely to get traded. But Luis Robert not getting traded is, I mean, like, what's the point of holding on to him? Maybe in the deadline, not the deadline. Maybe in the off season he gets moved, but it's just like you're gonna be the worst team in the league. You're not guaranteed to get the first overall pick anymore because of the new lottery rules. So it's like, what are we holding on to, Chicago? You got to let go, and it's okay to let go. It's okay to have a new beginning, to start fresh, start new, and I think that's what they have to do. And I just don't understand it. And that's all I have to say about the Cardinals. But I do want to also say the same thing about the Angels because you had Renhefo, you had Taylor Ward, you had Tyler Anderson, you had all these guys. Like, yes, you moved Carlos Estevez, but you still had Ward, you still had Renhefo, especially. You had Tyler Anderson. All these guys you could have moved and you didn't. What's the point of that? You're telling me they didn't have a single market? This was a huge seller's market this offseason, or not this offseason, this trade deadline, and you didn't move a single one of them. Like, I just can't wrap my head around it. You have weeks, months to prepare for the trade deadline, talking to these GMs, trying to scout out who needs what and what they're willing to give up. And it's better to get something than nothing. I just don't understand it. I'll never understand it. Angels fans, I think, other than Yankees fans, because Yankee fans have it worse than everybody. Let's be real here. I think Angels fans, other than the Yankee fans, that definitely have it worse. Yeah, I just feel so bad because there's just no direction. There's no direct, and you still have Mike Trout just hurt every freaking year at the same time. There's just no direction. They need to trade. They should have traded those guys. And in my personal opinion, they should trade Mike Trout because they're not winning anything. They're not. Get what you can for Trout. Soak up, squeeze up whatever value you can for him, and call it an off season. That's what I would do if I was the Angels.
But also, I just want to pan back to the White Sox for a second. You thought I know I thought, but we all thought that heading into this deadline they were going to be sellers because you know what? Before the deadline even started, what did they do, Matt? What did they do? They gave away Dylan Cease. That happened.
I totally
We
forgot. I was
didn't
at the
even
start of the
mention that.
season. Yeah.
They gave away Dylan Cease. So, and they gave away Eloy too at the deadline. So if they're willing to do that with those two pieces, which Dylan Cease probably the best White Sox player out of the four of them, maybe potentially. You gave him up already. Why not just go out and give up Garrett Crochet? Give up Luis Robert. Luis Robert barely can stay healthy as it is. And he's just rotten. He's just rotten away. Garrett Crochet was an all-star this year. Do you know how much value you could have gotten for an all-star pitcher?
I know. So, he's young and has control.
He's
He could have got
young.
so much.
He's young. He's so very young and has so much upside. And it just proved that what one full healthy season he what we could get out of him. What could happen with him if he's just healthy for one full year? This is just a testament of what he could do in the future, and you did nothing with it.
Mhm.
His peak value, he was at his best value now, and you did to nothing to get rid of him. So, but it's just like the White Sox are like beating a dead horse. Like it's already dead, just
Yeah.
let it be. Just let
Uh,
it be.
The Mets were in that same boat a couple years ago. So yeah.
Yeah, they were, but let it be. And with that being said, that it concludes episode 27 of the Do You Know Ball podcast. We will catch you guys next week for episode 28. Stay tuned, and we'll see you guys next time.